What happens when the entire world turns against one man? But the people closest to him, the ones who actually saw him in the studio, on stage, and behind closed doors, never take back a single word. Elizabeth Taylor cried on live television defending him. Kobe Bryant called him his mentor. Mike Tyson's voice softens the moment his name comes up. On one talk show, when a host made a disrespectful comment about Michael, another A-list celebrity got so angry the entire studio went silent. Here's the real question. When the whole world had already passed judgment, why didn't these people back down? Why did none of them stay quiet, even when it could have cost them their careers? Today, we're going to look at the real story of Michael Jackson, told by the people who were actually in the room, when the cameras were off, when the microphones were off, when it was just two human beings and a genuine friendship. Think about it. How many times have we judged someone based purely on a headline? One clip, one caption, and we hand down a full verdict, without knowing anything about that person's actual life, or who actually stands by them. I work in this exact field. I make content, I write scripts, I show up on camera, and I know exactly how fast public perception forms, and how fast it can turn on you. One day you're inspiring, the next day people are trying to cancel you, over a single clip that never tells the full story. When I first started deep diving into Michael Jackson's story, it hit me. This isn't just a celebrity story. It's a lesson for every single person who's ever been the target of public judgment. Because the louder the world screamed against him, the tighter the people close to him held on. And that fact alone says a lot. Think about it. None of the people we're about to talk about in this video needed to defend Michael. They were all already famous, already successful. There was nothing to gain from speaking up publicly. Yet they did it anyway. And that's exactly what makes their testimony so powerful. Today, I'm going to walk you through those stories, celebrity stories on the surface, but life lessons underneath. Over 20 of them, straight from some of the biggest names in the world. Now, let's get into it. It was 1993. The media was going all in against Michael Jackson. Every channel, every magazine was pushing the same question. And in the middle of that noise, Elizabeth Taylor, one of Hollywood's biggest legends, felt zero need for diplomacy. She said it straight. This was the least weird man she had ever known. She called Michael intelligent, shrewd, and a genius, not a freak show. But this wasn't just a statement. Taylor had spent nights at Neverland, phone calls that stretched till dawn, shared meals, all away from the cameras. When the world attacked Michael, Taylor dug in even harder. She said, "I will always be there for him." And she meant it literally. Lesson: when a hard time hits your life, watch who actually stays. Not in press conferences, but in the silence of the night. Those are your real people. And this isn't just about celebrities. Think about your own life. When your business took a loss, when a project of yours failed, when people formed the wrong opinion about you, who actually stayed? Who picked up the phone when everyone else disappeared? Those are the people worth valuing, no matter how few they are. Because it's not about numbers. It's about depth when it comes to real support. For Lenny Kravitz, walking into a studio with Michael Jackson wasn't just a collaboration, it was a masterclass. In a 2018 Rolling Stone interview, Kravitz described how Michael knew exactly what he wanted. His vocal precision, his obsession with the smallest rhythmic detail, his refusal to settle for good enough. While watching all of that permanently changed how Kravitz understood his own craft. And when Michael passed away, Kravitz didn't hedge, didn't add a but. He said it straight. This was the most incredible performer he had ever seen. Quincy Jones's case is even more interesting. Jones was a man who never dealt in flattery. In 2018, when he called Michael the greatest entertainer that ever lived, it wasn't a friend's compliment. It was a producer's clinical professional assessment. He wrote that Michael was 100% responsible for the arrangement on Billie Jean, recording a single vocal line for hours until it was perfect. Nobody asked him to. He demanded that standard from himself. When your work is strong enough to speak for itself, you don't need to say anything in your own defense. Excellence builds its own witness. I teach this to my own editing and script writing students all the time. People will ask you, why are you so good at this? But if your work is genuinely good, that question starts answering itself. Michael Jackson never defended himself by saying, "I'm a perfectionist." He proved it by spending hours in the studio. That's the difference between talk and action. The world remembers action, not words. Eddie Murphy doesn't do sentimentality. But when Rolling Stone asked him about Michael Jackson in 2016, seriousness crept into his voice. "Michael was a good friend of mine," he said, leaving no room for a follow-up question. The two of them had spent years together, away from the crowded cameras and screaming crowds, talking about comedy, about films, about that strange world both of them had grown up in, black superstars who'd been famous since childhood. Murphy never turned those memories into stand-up material. He never sat on a late-night couch and fed the media's appetite. And here's the biggest lesson. When the world wants you to betray a friend for entertainment value, silence is the most dignified answer you can give. You don't have to answer every single time. Sometimes silence is the strongest proof of loyalty you can offer. In 2009, Jay-Z told the press that Michael Jackson was the first black global superstar. This wasn't a generous statement made after Michael's death. It was a fact he'd been repeating for years. Before Michael, black artists didn't get airplay on MTV. After Michael, the entire industry rewrote its rules. Jay-Z has always focused on the part of the legacy that goes beyond performance. Ownership, strategy, the refusal to remain just a performer. In interviews and in his own lyrics, he's consistently held Michael up as a blueprint. He calls the ATV catalog purchase genius, the way Michael built his own empire inside a system designed to exploit him. For Jay-Z, the real story isn't the tabloid noise, isn't the late-night punchlines. The real story is that Michael Jackson showed every artist who came after him that ownership is the ultimate power move. When you rewrite the rules of your own industry, you don't need anyone else to prove your value. Your impact becomes its own witness. For years, Janet Jackson watched the media dissect her brother like a specimen, turning his sensitivity into a punchline, his uniqueness into something sinister. In her 2022 documentary, when Janet finally let the world see the wound, her voice cracked. She said, "They crucified him." And the past tense didn't make it hurt any less. This wasn't a PR strategy, this was a sister's grief. Still raw, still burning, and still refusing to let the world have the last word on her brother's name. The real cost of a public defense is only understood by people who carry that same loyalty in private when no one's watching. Liza Minnelli had watched fame destroy people up close in her own life. When she sat down with Arsenio Hall in 1993, she didn't do diplomacy. She said she'd known Michael since he was a teenager, and the person she knew bore no resemblance to the tabloid caricature. He was kind. He was gentle. He wanted to make people happy, she said. I believe in his innocence, and she said it like someone who had earned the right to be believed. In 2009, after Michael passed away, Entertainment Tonight caught up with her again. This time, there were tears in her eyes. The showmanship was gone. What remained was a friend mourning a friend, still angry at a world that never understood him. Lesson. Testimony from people who knew you before you had anything to show carries more weight than testimony from anyone else. They don't know you out of favor. They know you from a time when you had nothing to prove. These are the people who can see your growth, who can see who you really are, because they saw you without any filter. In 2007, an Access Hollywood interviewer was trying to pull something controversial out of Whitney Houston, but Whitney's face had already closed that door. I don't know about all that, she said. I know the man and he's a good person. She didn't give a long speech. She just talked about their phone calls, two people who understood a loneliness that couldn't be described, only shared. Her defense was simple but stubborn. She never once treated Michael like a stranger, no matter what the tabloids printed. Lesson. The strongest defense isn't the longest one. It's the one that's true and unshakable. People often think proving a point requires a lengthy explanation, but when you're actually certain of something, you don't need to say much. One short, honest sentence, I know he's a good person, can carry more weight than an hour-long speech. Slash has worked with some of the biggest musicians in the world, but in his 2007 autobiography, the session that stood out the most was the one with Michael Jackson on Dangerous. He described Michael as a musician who knew exactly what he wanted from every single instrument in the room. Slash would lay down a riff, and Michael would hum a counter-melody no one had ever heard before, like he was pulling music straight out of the air. In 2009, after Michael's death, Slash called that collaboration one of the highlights of his career. 5 years later, talking to HuffPost Live, he went even further. He said he'd never seen anything that matched the rumors. Just a perfectionist who worked harder than anyone and respected his collaborators. Lesson. The most credible defense doesn't come from emotion. It comes from direct experience. When someone praises you purely because they've personally seen how you work, that kind of praise can't be dismissed. So show your work. Don't just talk about it. People remember your actions far more than your words. Britney Spears was still in the last years of her teens when she performed with Michael Jackson at his 30th anniversary concert in 2001. In an MTV interview shortly after, she still sounded starstruck. She said it was amazing, her accent slipping through with the excitement. In 2009, after Michael's death, Britney released a short but unguarded statement. He has been an inspiration throughout my entire life, and I'm devastated he's gone. In 2016, when a BBC Radio 1 interviewer asked about her influences, she went straight to Michael. No hesitation, no awkward pause. Britney, who would later face her own version of media persecution, never joined the pylon. She'd met her idol, and reality had turned out better than the myth. That was the only story she was interested in telling. The highest compliment you can give someone is saying that meeting them made your respect for them grow even more. Donald Trump and Michael Jackson's friendship always raised eyebrows, but Trump never backed away from it. In 2009, on Larry King Live, right after Michael's death, Trump was uncharacteristically subdued. He was an amazing guy, he said. I knew him very well. He was a very good friend of mine. He talked about Michael's business instincts, the incredible deals he made, the way he outmaneuvered industry executives who underestimated him. Earlier, on Howard Stern's show, Trump had been even more direct. When Stern pushed on the controversy, Trump shot back. I've known him for a long time, and he's either a great actor or he's telling the truth. It wasn't poetic, it wasn't nuanced, but Trump's refusal to join the pile-on, despite media pressure, was a loyalty that Michael's other friends noticed and appreciated. Lesson: real loyalty never follows popular opinion, no matter how much pressure there is. Erykah Badu doesn't answer questions she considers beneath her. When the inspiration behind Outkast's iconic song Ms. Jackson comes up, Badu redirects the focus to how her mother, Colleen Gibson, proudly embraced the record. The track was an honest apology from Andre 3000 after their breakup, and while it initially hit a sore spot for Badu, her mother completely loved it. She even bought a Ms. Jackson license plate, mug, and headband. She didn't shy away from the spotlight. She claimed it. Badu's take on the whole situation is lighthearted and reflective. She's not interested in denying that the song is associated with her. She's interested in celebrating how her family reacted to a hip-hop classic that never faded from public memory. Sometimes something written against you, if you look at it the right way, can become your biggest badge of honor. Kobe Bryant didn't collect mentors. He was too singular, too obsessed, too convinced he could think his way to greatness alone. But Michael Jackson got through to him. On the Court podcast in 2018, Kobe described how Michael would call him after playoff games, not just to offer congratulations, but to break down exactly what he'd observed. He taught me to study the greats who came before me, Kobe said. Michael sent him books, films, recordings, an entire curriculum of excellence from a man who'd spent his life pursuing it. Kobe wove those lessons into his Mamba mentality. In a 2016 ESPN interview, he called Michael a genius and a true friend. There was gratitude in his voice, the specific gratitude of someone who'd been given a gift they didn't know they needed. Lesson? The best mentor isn't the one who compliments you. It's the one who teaches you to study your own craft so deeply that you reach your own greatness. Macaulay Culkin has been answering the same question for decades, and his patience is visibly running thin. On the Inside of You podcast in 2019, Michael Rosenbaum asked about Michael Jackson, and Culkin exhaled like a man who'd been waiting to say this out loud. He was my best friend, Culkin said. He never did anything to me. I never saw him do anything. He explained what the tabloids never bothered to understand. Two child stars, separated by a generation but bonded by the same impossible experience, could find genuine connection. Michael understood Culkin's life in a way no adult on a film set ever could. In a 2020 Esquire interview, Culkin repeated the same defense, his tone flatter now, tired. He's not protecting a celebrity. He's protecting a friendship that the world has spent decades trying to poison, and he's still not letting go. Lesson: a friendship you carry from childhood carries more weight than any achievement in your entire adult career. Childhood friendships are never part of a strategy. No child befriends someone for networking. So when that friendship survives into adulthood and someone keeps defending it, even when it exhausts them, even when they have to face the same question over and over, you know that friendship is real, not built for image. Chris Cornell didn't cover Billie Jean as a gimmick. The Soundgarden frontman, whose voice could strip paint from walls, treated Michael Jackson's songwriting with the same reverence rock critics reserve for Bob Dylan. In a 2007 Rolling Stone interview, Cornell was blunt. Michael Jackson is a genius. He added the acoustic cover to his live set because he wanted audiences to hear the bones of the song, the architecture, the tension, the perfection. After Michael died in 2009, Cornell kept playing it. He said great music doesn't care about genre, and Michael's work deserved to stand alongside any rock classic ever written. Cornell's defense was purely musical. He didn't know Michael personally. He didn't need to. The catalog spoke for itself. Brian May had a similar experience. Arriving at Michael's home studio in 1983, the Queen guitarist expected an entourage. Instead, he found Michael himself making tea for everyone. Shy, May recalled, but incredibly professional the moment the music started. They worked on There Must Be More to Life Than This, and May watched Michael layer vocals with surgical precision, humming harmonies that seemed to come from somewhere beyond the room. Lesson: craft doesn't need words to testify for itself. If your work is genuine, it speaks its own language. When two professionals, each a master in their own field, respect each other purely because of the craft, that respect doesn't come from personal favor. It comes from honest evaluation, and honest evaluation is one of the most durable currencies in the world. It never goes out of date. In 2009, just days after Michael's death, Larry King asked Naomi Campbell a question, and before her answer was even finished, the supermodel who'd built her career on composure was falling apart on live television. "He was one of the most caring, sweetest people I've ever met in my life," she said, pressing a tissue to her eyes. She talked about the phone calls, Michael checking in, always thoughtful, always remembering details about her life that most people forgot. In a 2014 Guardian interview, she expanded on his influence, crediting Michael with teaching her about philanthropy and the responsibility of a platform. He donated millions to causes he never publicized. The bond ran just as deep for a boxer. In 2019, on Joe Rogan's podcast, the moment Mike Tyson mentioned Michael Jackson's name, his tattooed face softened and a slight tremble crept into his voice. He was just a real sweet, gentle guy, Tyson said. He recalled the invitations, the way Michael treated him like family when the rest of the world still saw a convicted felon. Michael understood pain, understood isolation, understood what it felt like to be the most famous person in a room and still feel completely alone. In 2020, when a guest on Tyson's own podcast tried to make a joke about Michael, Tyson's response was immediate and final. Don't talk about my friend like that. Lesson. People who have been through real pain form the most genuine bonds. Because they're not performing, they truly understand. Naomi Campbell and Mike Tyson are both among the most judged people in the world. One for her looks and temper, the other for his past. When people like this defend a third person who's been misunderstood, their testimony carries extra weight, because they know exactly what it feels like to be judged. Paul McCartney could have held on to bitterness. The ATV catalog purchase stung. Michael outbidding him for his own songs, a business move still discussed decades later. But in a 2009 video tribute after Michael's death, Paul didn't dwell on the deal. I feel privileged to have hung out and worked with Michael, he said, a massively talented boy man with a gentle soul. When Stephen Colbert asked about it in 2018, Paul shrugged. It was just business, he said. I loved Michael. He talked instead about their recording sessions, the laughter, the way they bonded over songcraft. Paul is a man who has lost friends to fame, to feuds, to the grinding machinery of the music industry. He wasn't going to let a contract define his memory of Michael. Lesson? Business deals come and go, but real friendship is bigger than any deal. If you limit a relationship to a transaction, you'll never understand its true value. Stephen King never met Michael Jackson, but he understood the story better than most. In a 2009 Entertainment Weekly column, written shortly after Michael's death, King didn't eulogize the pop star. He analyzed the phenomenon. Michael, King wrote, was a tragic figure who had been famous since childhood, never given a chance at anything resembling a normal life. The real horror story wasn't anything Michael had done. It was what the media had done to him. King, who has spent his career writing about mobs and monsters, recognized the dynamic instantly. The cameras were the torches. The tabloids were the pitchforks. And Michael, isolated in his castle, became the creature the villagers decided to destroy without evidence, without due process, without a moment's hesitation. Russell Brand doesn't do simple defenses. In a 2019 YouTube video, he approached the Michael Jackson controversy the way he approaches everything, by questioning the machinery behind the narrative. Michael's real crime, Brand argued, was being too unusual, too wealthy, too free for a society that demands conformity. He'd been famous since childhood, shaped by pressures that would break anyone, and the same public that made him a star was now the public that wanted to watch him burn. Brand didn't litigate the details. He examined the system, the tabloids that profit from destruction, the audiences that crave it, the artists who get chewed up and spat out. Lesson: sometimes the biggest offense isn't about one person. It's about questioning the entire system that destroys people. Next time you see someone getting canceled online, pause for a moment and ask, is this person actually wrong? Or is this just a system that always needs a new target simply because attention and outrage are profitable? Asking that question is a bigger act than defending anyone. Here's a story that sparked debate for years. A dramatic image shows Michael Jackson sitting beside Chris Tucker during an episode of The Tonight Show, while Chris angrily confronts host Jimmy Fallon after hearing comments he believed were unfair and disrespectful toward Michael. According to the story, Chris passionately defended his longtime friend, arguing that Michael had dedicated much of his life to helping children, supporting charities, and bringing joy to millions around the world. The tense exchange allegedly left the audience stunned as emotions ran high. But here's the important part. We couldn't verify the origin of this footage or whether the incident happened exactly as shown, so I'll ask you, what do you think this image really shows? Let me know in the comments. Lesson: not everything viral is true, but everything viral tells you something. In this case, it shows just how emotional people got in Michael's defense, whether or not the story was ever verified. When you put all these stories together, a pattern emerges that can't be a coincidence. Elizabeth Taylor, Quincy Jones, Whitney Houston, Liza Minnelli, all of them were at a point in their lives where they had nothing left to prove to anyone. Their own legacy was already established. Yet, when the moment came, they risked their own reputations to speak up for Michael. That's the detail that's most convincing. When someone who already has everything, fame, respect, career, still spends their own time and credibility defending someone else, what more honest testimony could there be? Lesson. When someone who needs nothing from you still stands up for you, that's how you know the relationship is real. Just think about it. In this video, we've seen Hollywood legends, Elizabeth Taylor, Liza Minnelli, Macaulay Culkin, musicians, Lenny Kravitz, Chris Cornell, Brian May, Slash, hip-hop royalty, Jay-Z, Erykah Badu, pop icons, Britney Spears, Whitney Houston, sports legends, Kobe Bryant, Mike Tyson, and even politicians and authors, Donald Trump, Stephen King, Russell Brand. These are people from completely different industries, different backgrounds, different generations. None of them had any personal connection to each other that would push them towards saying the same thing. Yet, when it came to Michael Jackson, their message was identical. What you see in the media isn't the full story. That's such a consistent pattern that it's hard to ignore. When more than 20 people, all speaking independently of each other, give the exact same kind of testimony, that's not a coincidence. It's a signal that maybe, just maybe, the headlines never showed us the full picture. Lesson. When a large number of independent people say the same thing, with no financial or emotional benefit in lying, learn to listen. A pattern is never a lie, even when individual stories can be challenged. But the real question isn't what the world says. The real question is, what do the people who actually know you closely say? Michael Jackson's life teaches us, if your work is genuine, if your relationships are genuine, no tabloid, no headline, no trending topic can erase that. Elizabeth Taylor proved it with her loyalty. Quincy Jones proved it with his craft. Kobe Bryant proved it with his mentorship. And Stephen King proved it with his analysis, that the real monster is never the person the world targets, but the system that passes judgment without thinking. So next time the world makes noise against you, whether it's a comment section, someone's taunt, whatever it is, remember, do your work. Recognize your real people. And stand on your truth. Think about it. Elizabeth Taylor gave her time. Quincy Jones gave his credibility. Kobe Bryant gave his respect. Naomi Campbell gave her tears, live on television in front of the entire world. All of these people took that risk because they knew truth has a price, and they were willing to pay it. This is the exact mindset you need to build into your own life. When you praise someone, when you stand by someone, when you take a stand for someone, don't think about what the world will say. Think about what the truth actually is. The world will always find someone to target. That will never stop. But your job is to decide whether you become part of that mob, or whether you become the honest voice that speaks the truth without expecting anything in return. And if you think the world judges people way too fast without ever knowing the full story, comment truth. Like this video, if you learned something new today, that small action genuinely helps this channel grow. And make sure to subscribe to Atom Mission. Hit the bell icon too, because next video we're bringing you more true stories the world has forgotten, but that teach us some of life's biggest lessons about loyalty, truth, and hard work. See you in the next video. Until then, keep doing your work, keep staying true, and keep valuing your real people.